Welcome to the Alouettes Flightdeck, the podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football. I'm Cliffy D. You can find me on X at Cliffy D.
And I'm Tim Capper. You can also find me on X at Repact. That's REPPACT. And this episode of the podcast is presented by our good friends over at SportBuff, where if you use the promo code ALSFlightDeck10 at checkout, you can save 10% off your entire order. So head over to sportbuffshop.com, use the code, save 10%, buy the new, currently available Grey Cup Championship merch, and support local.
And the Alouettes Flightdeck is all over the World Wide Web and on social media. If you haven't already, make sure you check out our archives over at www.alouettesflightdeck.ca. Give the show a follow on X at AlouettesFLDeck. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/AlouettesFlightDeckPod. Check out our Instagram page at Alouettes Flightdeck. You can also find us on Threads at Alouettes Flightdeck. If you haven't already, too, make sure you check out our live streams and all of our other goodies over on our YouTube channel over at youtube.com/Alouettes Flightdeck. And last but certainly not least, if you want to represent this show, and we appreciate it if you do, make sure you head over to our merch store over at www.flightdeckgear.ca.
Just as a little teaser too, Cliff, we're going to talk about the shop. We got a new If You Know, You Know shirt coming out very, very soon. So stay tuned because it's a perfect homage to the Grey Cup winning Montreal Alouettes. And also, by the way, too, we are also on Blue Sky. Just do a search for at Repact, at Cliffy D, at Alouettes FLDeck. We'll pop up. You can't miss us. I find that we're being more active on Blue Sky than we are on Threads, but still, that's fine. So, yeah, how do I start this off? Let me think for a second.
Well, you kind of buried the lead in the you're talking about the Blue Sky and the merch shop. So you may as well just get out of the way right now. The Montreal Alouettes have won the Grey Cup, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I was going to start off actually by going, we the ones.
Yes. We the ones. OUI. The ones. We are the 1%. Alouettes Nation is the 1%. Because nobody believed in this Alouettes team from day one of this season. And even further back, go back to February with the tumultuous situation with ownership, with free agency, basically being handcuffed, this team being handcuffed and being able to do any moves. People were jumping off the ship like rats jumping off the Titanic. It was not pretty in February, to say the least. We'll delve into more of this during our year in review episode, but fast forward to this past Sunday. Despite the fact that the Alouettes simply manhandled the 16-2 Toronto Argonauts in the Eastern Final to get to this Grey Cup game, it was like, okay, great, you made the Grey Cup. That's very cool. You should be very proud of yourselves. But there's no way in hell you're going to beat Winnipeg. They're 14-4. They kicked your ass twice earlier this year. Zach Laros, Brady Oliveira. These are our world
narrative. I hated that narrative. Continue. I'm sorry.
Again, so many reasons why. And once again, a lot of the experts, even though they were starting to give Montreal a little bit more respect, still said, hey, it's great that you made it this far, but let's temper expectations. This is Winnipeg's Cup. The dynasty is going to be back on. Blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? Once again, the Alouettes were having none of that. They did not get the memo that they were supposed to suck. They did not get the memo that they were supposed to roll over and die for Winnipeg. Instead, they went into Tim Hortons Field this past Sunday, and they played what I know it's still early because it's still new to us. It's still kind of raw. But I think you give this another year or two, maybe another 5 years. I think we're going to look back on this particular Grey Cup game, Winnipeg versus Montreal, as I'll go so far as to say a top 5 Grey Cup game. Like you talked about instant classic.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
This game was an instant classic, start to finish. It was just an incredible battle. Like just, I won't say David versus Goliath because it wasn't about that. Like these two teams and it's easier, like hindsight's being 2020, but these teams were very evenly matched for the most part. And
They were. By the way,
neither team.
I was like, this just in. I just even had, you're talking about how nobody got any memo. I just got the memo here. It's in my hand. I know you can't see it, but see the memo? This is the one that went to Cody Fajardo. And you know what it said? Actually, it's the one from Cody Fajardo. You know what it says? It says, "Fuck you. Just watch."
Well, and we'll get to that in a moment, folks, because that
I had to break that in first. I had to break that in because that was epic. We're jumping all over the place. I don't care. We're able to. So
I tell you what. I mean, this whole Grey Cup week, by and large, has been incredibly memorable for us at the flight deck, and not just because the Alouettes won the Grey Cup. That was just the icing on the cake. That was just the cherry on top. Whatever adjective or idiom you want to use, that was it. Like this was a Grey Cup to remember for so many reasons for us.
It was a new medium, and the stuff that was done. And applaud to you for UMNO for taking the mantle for the first couple of days. And it's. I'm hoping it speaks for itself. I'm going to say this, and then we'll go talk more about the game too, and just the experience itself. But 20 plus episodes over on our YouTube page, 20 plus interviews on our YouTube page alone, plus the two lives that we did this past week.
Yeah, and listen, don't sell yourself short either, Tim. Like, you did a great job behind the scenes producing these and making sure that they got out and make sure everybody was able to download them and find them. And this was a team effort. Let's make no mistake. This Alouettes Flight Deck media blitz does not happen just with one person. It really does take a village to make this happen. And we were so thrilled and honored to have the opportunity to provide that content for you, the listeners, or the YouTube viewers. And for everyone that checked it out, thank you so much. It meant the world. And we are beyond grateful to have had the opportunity to go and be a part of the media days, to go to the practices every day and speak with the players afterwards, and coaches sitting in on their press conferences after each practice was such a treat. I mean, it was really, truly an amazing experience. And I hope every podcaster, that puts in the time, does the work, and wants to prove themselves, I hope they'll get this opportunity as well. And I think that's really what it came down to, is you got to do the work. And I was willing to roll up my sleeves and get the work done. And maybe it's truly simply only because the Alouettes were in the Grey Cup that they gave us this opportunity, but we took it, we ran with it. And I'm so incredibly thankful and grateful to have that opportunity. And I'm extremely proud of the work we did. It was pretty awesome. There's no question about it. I think that it really did. It really did make this Grey Cup experience that much sweeter. I mean, win or lose, whatever happened on the field was going to happen on the field this past Sunday. But the build up to it was nothing short of incredible. The opportunity to sit and talk with players after their practice and just get to know them a little bit, and get, guys that we had on the show and even guys that we haven't had on the show. It was really interesting to be able to sit and talk with them about their Grey Cup experience thus far, what they thought about their season, all these things. And the guys that we haven't had on the show, we're going to get them on the show and give them a chance to really tell their story properly in the next little while. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, what a treat. From going to media day this past Wednesday to the practices and everything in between. What an experience. What an experience. And I am beyond grateful to the Canadian Football League and to the Montreal Alouettes for providing us with that opportunity.
If you haven't checked it out, you can go over to our YouTube page. We do have a full playlist, which does include all the 20 plus interviews and the 2 lives that we did. For new media like we are, for the new type of, again, it's not legacy media. We're new media. I think, above and beyond, we're not a TSN, we're not a RDS, we're not, we are essentially a 3-person, we're a 3-person crew this week. And just getting it done. And I think one of the funniest things, because this is part of the experience itself, it was like, your reaction because I get there on Friday and we talk about. I asked you about other interviews, and you go, "Did you bring your?" Yeah, I go, "Yeah, you bring your laptop." Of course, I brought my laptop. You go, "I thought you weren't going to bring your laptop," and I'm like, "I know what I got to do. I know, I know what I got to do.
Uh,
we got to complete it. We got to complete the race."
exactly.
So it's
So, and that's it. That's the thing. I mean, it's funny. Grey Cup is a lot of things for a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people go strictly for the parties, and that's great. If that's what you're into, that's awesome. A lot of people go there to, will only go if their team's in the Grey Cup, win or and to see them win or lose. That's fine too. A lot of the media types that we know and we follow and that follow us, to them, this is work. This is a job. Like, it's not party time for them, and that's fine as well. And for me, the interesting part was straddling that line between, okay, yeah, you want to go, you want to check out the parties and have fun, and you meet your friends, and it's really great. And I love that part of Grey Cup. But working things from the media side of things was a lot of fun in a different way.
And keeping it very professional, because we know some of the players on the team. And we feel that that's a plus for us because we're able to talk to them, and usually, we'd be able to get more. I don't want to say tidbits, but usually off the record type of stuff than I guess somebody else normally would. But it's like walking that fine line too between handshake and bro hug. And you know what I'm talking about. You got to keep it a certain way, to stay within that line of being media. And I think we did well. I mean, to me, I know we'll talk about more about the experience because you guys were there for a little bit longer, but about the festival and stuff like that. But for me, the thing that really stands out to me, Cliff, is the story that you told me about the one of the first few days that you were there for post game after the practice, and in a surprise to you, you were approached by the league to do post practice interviews, and that's where it started. And I loved it. I loved hearing that. So
it's incredible. Like, to me, that just tells me, okay, you're being recognized. Like, they see the podcast, they know it's a thing, and they treat it just as seriously as they would at TSN or RDS or National Post or any of these other like we call them legacy media outlets. But I mean, for lack of a better term, that's what we'll go with. Like, a lot of people still don't see a podcast necessarily as media worthy. So, and I know this, like, I'm not blind to that fact that a lot of people are like, well, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can start a podcast. Great, let them. I'm sure there's lots of people that would love to start a Alouettes podcast, and if you're lucky, maybe you get 100 viewers, for your shows and such. But like, we are very cognizant of the fact that we've put in 8+ years in doing this podcast. We've talked to a lot of players, a lot of coaches. We've even talked to an Alouettes owner. We've talked to a lot of people throughout the league, and we put in a pretty decent body of work. So we're not a fly-by-night operation, and I think the league recognizes that, and they were willing to help us out any way that they could. And they made it very clear, like, okay, whoever you want to talk to, let us know. We'll make it happen, which was mind blowing to me. Like, okay, like this was a privilege I figured was reserved for, as I said, the legacy media types. And it was just almost like, just shut your mouth and be glad to be there kind of thing. And that's kind of how I was taking it. But when they come up, when the league's media people come up to you and ask, who do you want to talk to? I'm like, oh, okay. Yes, let me talk to so-and-so. Let me talk to so-and-so. And, in conjunction with the Alouettes media department as well, who've always been good to us. They've always been very good when it comes to letting us book guests on the show. And again, we are truly, truly grateful for that. But just to have the league's backing on this as well is just, to me, so huge. And, I sincerely hope other podcasts take it upon themselves to, if they want to present themselves as a serious product and not just some fanboy, fangirl experience, which again, some podcasts actually work better that way. And if that's your thing, more power to you. But we wanted to show that we were serious about this. We're not just, yes, we're here because the Alouettes are in the Grey Cup, but at the same time, we want to give them the proper coverage that they deserve. And they allowed us to do that. And for that, we are extremely grateful. as I said, not just to the league, but also to the Alouettes media department themselves. They were just, everybody was great across the board, super professional, and just made the experience that much better for us.
Exactly. And obviously there were those hits that we did during the week. I did a couple prior to leaving. I know that you did one, which a lot of people don't know about, is that you did a hit with another Winnipeg supporter on a major Toronto radio station. We will be putting that out onto our socials very soon, so you will be able to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was prompted by the league. By the league. So
Yep.
I can't, you know what, I can't fault them, buddy. I mean, as I said, I was stoked. We were based on the color of our press pass. We took advantage of it very pretty well. So
Mm-hmm. No, it was just a great experience. As I said, Grey Cup is a lot of things for a lot of people, but for us, we really did want to conquer the media side of things as well as, the party aspect of things, because both are important for the Grey Cup experience as far as I'm concerned. And again, I'm just thankful that we were able to do the media stuff we were able to do. And, it was really interesting straddling that line a little bit between wanting to check out the parties and that aspect of things, and then the media stuff, which is some would consider work and maybe too much work for, this event supposed to be just a big old party. And, I think we found
experience with that, and you've less experience to that than I do, it was really something very new for you. You know what I mean? So, especially with your team being in it, our team being in it, you know what I mean? So
yes. No, it was, without question, this was such tremendous Grey Cup. Just that alone, just having that access alone is immeasurable. And being able to go to the CFL Awards as well and checking that out, that was a great experience as well. I mean, even though Marc-Antoine Dequoy was the only Alouette that was nominated for an award, and unfortunately he lost quite handily to Brady Oliveira, it was still great to go to Niagara Falls and see
who got the chip. Who got the chip? Who's
that's it.
Ring?
See that, and I guess that's a pretty good consolation prize for Marc-Antoine. If you truly wanted the Most Outstanding Canadian Award, I'm hoping he was able to console himself with the fact that a couple days later he was going to go ahead and win the Grey Cup. So
exactly.
Here's hoping.
Yeah. So again, thank you, CFL, for giving us the opportunity. I hope it shows to you that our organization can be called upon, no matter what it may be, for future reference. So, and that goes to the Owls too, obviously. So I hope we did prove ourselves, and especially with our first year too of lives. Who would have thought, dude? First year of lives, and all this happens. Go to the Grey Cup and Let's pivot to the festivities there. You kind of talked about one with the player awards. What were I know you got to experience 2 more days of them than I did, because I only came in on Friday. But what were some of the other things that you were able to experience prior to me coming in on Friday, and then us going ham?
As they say, going ham in the hammer.
Oh, I never thought I did that. That was totally. That's good. I like
that. I mean, not much really, because realistically, like, the first part of the week strictly seems to be more media-based stuff, because people don't really start rolling into Grey Cup till usually about Thursday, Friday. But there are some diehards that will get in on the Wednesday, and there was a meet and greet at one of the pubs in Hamilton that opened things up for fans to go and check out. And once again, kind of feels like a big family reunion. And it was actually kind of funny too, because Dave Naylor and a lot of the media people also had a little soiree similar to that, like a sort of meet and greet as well. So I managed to go to both. So it was kind of neat, because you get the media aspect of things, as far as you can sit and talk shop with other media types, and it's that too is in a sense a family reunion of sorts, which is really cool to be a part of. And then we wander over to the fan meet and greet. same idea. It's just that now it's CFL fans, once again, from all over. And once again, a lot of these people you haven't seen since Grey Cup. A lot of these people you haven't seen since the last time you went to a road game, if you did. Just another opportunity to rub elbows and have an adult beverage or two, and just get caught up on things. And it was interesting because a lot of fans would come up like, "Oh my God, we're so happy for you! The Alouettes are in the Grey Cup. We're cheering for them." And it was crazy to know, like, of all the CFL teams, it seemed like everybody but Winnipeg was cheering for the Alouettes. And even more mind-blowing, when you got like hardcore Rider fans who have been with that team all their lives practically, and no doubt will never ever forget 2009, 2010, they're cheering for the Alouettes. They're cheering for Cody Fajardo. They're cheering for Jason Moss. And they want to, and maybe it's just simply because the hatred between Saskatchewan and Winnipeg runs so deep that it basically comes down to the enemy of my friend, or the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I think that's, I think that's how it goes.
That's it.
So it's like, okay, well, we don't really like you, but we like you more than Winnipeg, so we're cheering for you. But like, wow, okay, we'll take it. And yeah, every fan base, even like those Toronto fans, a lot of them were coming up. It's like, listen, it sucks. We still think we should have been in this game, but you were the better team, so we're going to put our support behind you. Like, that's incredible. And Hamilton too. Montreal beat them in the Eastern semifinal. Hamilton was supposed to host the Grey. Well, they're hosting the Grey Cup. The team should have been in there. They're supporting the Alouettes. Like, it was incredible to see the amount of support. Like, if any Alouettes fans that were there, they were very, very well taken care of. There was a lot of love, and even Winnipeg fans, though, they're kind of like, well, we hope you do well, but you'll understand if, of course, totally understand. I mean, that's the thing, there's no hatred. There is no animosity or anything. That was just like, well, may the best team win, or I just hope both teams have fun, that sort of sentiment, and just that kind of little good-natured ribbing, things like that. Like, and that's great. And to me, that's what makes Grey Cup so special as well, is that regardless of who you're cheering for in the game, the idea is that there's nothing so bitter, so angry that you're just you wish the other team would die or something like that. There's none of that. It's really just, you want to see a good football game. You want to see your team win, obviously, but you're not going to be too sad if the other team loses, because you got friends on across the league, and you just want everybody to enjoy the game no matter what. And win or lose, at least you can go to the bar afterwards, have a couple of drinks, and salute your team, win or lose. And I think that's part of what makes Grey Cup so special as well, is that there is that sentiment that even if my team's not in it, I'm still here to have a good time. I'm still here to have fun. I'm still here to watch a great football game. You can't ask for more than that. And I think that's what makes the fan experience at Grey Cup so special, is that everybody's involved, regardless of your colors, regardless of your affiliation, regardless of where you come from, even. Like, you're just there to enjoy a great game, a great atmosphere.
No matter the language you speak.
No matter the language you speak. Absolutely. French, English, Indigenous, you name it. And Grey Cup is just, if you haven't experienced Grey Cup yet, folks, you have to do it. You 100%, and you just have to go once, and you're ready to go back again and again.
And you can even just go in or you can just go in like I did. Just go in on the Friday, because you'll still be able to experience everything. You really,
for the most part, yes. When it comes to the parties and things like that, yes, absolutely, you can.
Now, did you attend the commissioner's fan State of the League?
No, because it was during one of the Alouettes practices. So
well, that's right. Yes. Yeah, that whole thing with Ambrosi doing it on the Tuesday or the Wednesday, whenever it was, like a couple of days prior to that made no sense whatsoever. I remember watching it on the stream. So
yeah, that was the media State of the League, which done early for reasons. Not sure what they are, but they decided to do that early. And that was also done the day of the coaches press conference. And I believe the CFLPA also had a State of the League or State of the Union address, I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they jammed a lot in that Media Tuesday. And no, I wasn't there for that, but
they really did. And obviously the contradictory stories between what the CFL says and what the CFLPA says. But that's what it is. That's what it is. I mean, it's union versus the man. So, I mean,
yeah. And Randy Ambrosie, no doubt, is going to go up there, and more so with, I think, the media than with the fans, is he's going to get grilled more for certain things. And
it wasn't streamed. They didn't stream the fan one. Is that the first time in years?
They didn't?
I don't think so. I remember it being on the docket. At least it's not available online. I remember the media one was.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Because I was looking for it on their page there. But if I'm wrong, somebody let me know. Send me at me.
Yeah.
I don't remember it being, because if it did that, I'm curious. I'm curious to watch it.
I mean, it's usually Randy Ambrosie answering the same 4 questions over and over again, anyways. So I mean,
no, and we never got that one question that we wanted answered about the new era contract. We never got an answer.
Never did, but
I guess we'll find out, or we'll reach out. Maybe we'll reach out to see if Naylor knows, or see if somebody else. Maybe, Solomon Aluminium. We'll reach out to him. We met him.
We did.
I met him for the first time. So let's, before we talk about some of the things we did as media, give me a highlight for you for the festival, because I will admit I've not been to very many Grey Cups. The last one for me was Ottawa, and I wasn't there. I was there for the day of the game, so I didn't get to partake in any of the festival. People were saying that this is probably one of the best festivals ever put on. Just location and what it was done and how it was done. I mean, to me, having everything over at the conference center in Hamilton was top notch. Mm-hmm. Really, really was. I mean, and they even had other sections too. Something was at the Armory. I think they had a lot of the stuff from the CFL Hall of Fame there. But the festival, everything set up for all the team parties or the team rooms, or whatever you want to call them, was top notch. It really was. We visited a few of the rooms, the parties, and it seemed to be fantastic. The mixture of the eastern block of teams set something up basically in one section, and then you had the bigger ones, like except for the Schooners room, Tiger Town, Edmonton for the one for Edmonton, etc. So, was there anyone that stood out to you specifically?
No, for the most part, it was everything. You're right. Having everything in one spot definitely makes things a lot easier. I mean, Lord knows there's tons of space. So, I mean, like some of the bigger ones, like Stamps House, the Schooners Party, BC Lions Den, those are definitely well attended. The Eastern teams don't really get a whole lot of love at Grey Cup when it comes to their own rooms, with the exception of Tiger Town, because obviously Hamilton hosting the Grey Cup, then they're going to get a little bit of priority.
Atlantic.
Yeah. But
that room is huge. I was like, that room is huge. That shows how much of a staple. They may not have a team yet, but that just shows how much they love coming, and how much of a talk. They become a talking point every year, where they're one of the must places you have to go, because that room was huge for them. It was a lot. I was able to walk around a lot more than I was over at what was essentially the Owls room temporarily over in Tiger Town, but still its own unique experience. It
is, and again, I would even tell people, if you're going to go to a Grey Cup Festival, you have to go to the Atlantic Schooners kitchen party, because it's insane. They always have great acts. They do all sorts of crazy events. They sell Atlantic Schooners gear, which is hilarious to me.
Oh.
They really love pushing that.
They were screeching in. Is it screeching in?
Yeah, you could get screeched in if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And lobster rolls, of course, are the big thing. It used to be, the big thing with them was the lobster rolls and the Alexander Keefs, which you could only get, or for the longest time you could only get in the Maritimes, but now you can pretty much find it anywhere. But what's really weird, they didn't have Keefs for sale at at the Atlantic Schooners room, which was kind of bizarre because that's kind of the whole thing, is like, to really help promote the culture, if you will, of Atlantic Canada. And yeah, I guess lobster rolls go hand in hand with the Schooners party. But to me, so is the Alexander Keefs. Like, to me, that kind of makes the whole experience. And listen, it's not like I'm a huge fan of Keefs to start with, but at the same time, it's just part of that consistency, I guess, if you will, that would have made this more ideal. But I think also, too, all of the rooms had the same.
Sponsors have balked at it, though? Is that a possibility?
What I'm thinking, though, is regardless of the room that you went into, the beer selections were pretty well the same. So I think it may just have come down to either it's a sponsor thing or maybe been contractually obligated by, I'm going to say Molson Coors, because it was like Molson, Canadian, Coors Light, those beers were on sale. And I think Keefs is owned by Labatt's, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe they may have put the kibosh on having Keefs in for that reason. So again, I'm sure there's people that are much more intelligent than I that can answer that question much better. And, again, it doesn't ruin the experience per se. I still would tell everybody that you do definitely have to check out the Atlantic Schooners room when you do go to Grey Cup, because it's always a lot of fun. And you're going to find everybody in there too. Like, a lot of fans will congregate there, meet up there, and just take in all the festivities and such in that particular room, which is awesome. And just the fact that you can buy like lobster swag and Atlantic Schooner jerseys. They actually print out a bunch of Atlantic Schooner jerseys for sale.
Oh,
they really love pushing that narrative that they're still undefeated. I prefer to think of them as winless. Because, yeah, you're undefeated, but you haven't played anyone. You haven't won anything either. So, I mean, you can go one of two ways with that, I suppose. But again, I still I can't help but chuckle, because that is something that they really hammer the point home, is that they're still undefeated. I'm like, yeah, because you haven't played anyone yet. So, but I digress. But still, I mean, that's pretty memorable. I guess one of the more memorable moments was going into Stamp's house, seeing our man Nick Lewis there. Always great to see Thick Nick. I mean, he's always a character. And Grey Cup, he loves Grey Cup. So I mean, like, I think in a perfect world he would have loved him coaching at Grey Cup with the Stampeders. But if you're not coaching, then that just frees you up to have more fun. So he was there, and so great to see him as well. Also funny, the Philpott family was in Stamp's house, including Jalen Philpott, who does play for the Stampeders. And it was kind of funny because Manel actually went up to him and was like, if you're not Jalen's brother, if you're not Tyson's brother, you better be in bed. I laughed because I swear to God, if you didn't know, you could have, well, again, being twins, obviously, like, but these guys are truly identical twins. Like, they look so similar. I think it's just their hair's
haircuts. Yeah, slight difference in the haircut.
Slight difference in the haircut, but the voice is the same. The laugh is the same. Like, if you didn't know better, you'd swear it was Tyson there. But no, it was definitely Jalen, and he's doing well with his rehab and all that. He's hoping to get back on the field in the next 2 months to get back to getting ready for the next season. But definitely nice to see him. Nice to see his family as well. And it was kind of funny because like I even said to Jalen, like, you're going to be wearing your brother's jersey on Sunday. He's like, yes, I am. Yes, I am. I said I would, and I'm going to do it. So that's awesome. And sure enough, Grey Cup Sunday, we did end up seeing the entire Philpott family again. And yes, Jalen was wearing his brother's jersey. So that's a very nice touch.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I said it was really just one day for me with the festivals and stuff like that. I was the CFL fans fight can't. The CFLPA event was very cool. The first night, just the turnout alone, which really made me feel really good for the CFL fans fight cancer event. Just being able to raise raise awareness and raise the money for that type of thing. Chris Agar, our friend, getting his hair cut and making money for that. I mean, 8 years in the making. That's a lot of hair.
And what's really awesome. What's really awesome too is they had a goal in mind, because last year in Saskatchewan they raised over $24,000, and that was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. But they pretty much said, Hamilton, we want you to beat that record. We want you to not just beat it, but crush it.
They
and they
shattered it,
did.
didn't they?
Oh,
Yeah.
and how? Like, I think it's still
What,
not
30,
still
36?
very close to $40,000, believe it or not, when it's all said and done.
Wow.
I mean
That's amazing.
that is so amazing. Like, there's a lot of people that were doing these sort of satellite events like Chris was doing, like to raise money beforehand, and by the time they got to Hamilton, these other fans had already raised about 24,000, which is what Saskatchewan cleared last year. So right off the hop, like anything that was going to be made after that was gravy. So yeah, the event was very well attended. I mean, just like like shoulder to shoulder, you were pretty much shoulder to shoulder with fans in the restaurant
venue,
there.
Though. Great venue.
Yeah, the End Zone Sports Bar in Hamilton is definitely amazing. A great place to watch any sporting events. But the way they had the setup done was just absolutely outstanding. As I said, great attendance, and yeah, like just when it came to like the silent auctions, 50-50 draws, you name it. Like I said, Chris got his head shaved, so you knew money was going towards that. Lots of other fans too were finding other ways to donate funds. I think the CFL Fans Fight Cancer also had a fantasy league going, so the winner of that was going to donate his portion to the cause. So that's even more. But like when it was all said and done, as I said, it was close to $40,000 were raised for a local cancer center, which is just phenomenal. It does my heart so good. That's the thing with doing media this year, like because the Alouettes had their walkthrough kind of at the same time. Like we weren't able to attend the entire thing, but we still went for a little bit, and it was such a great turnout. And just to hear those final numbers it means so much because
whirlwind on Saturday.
It really was. I mean, it's been a whirlwind like from the moment I got there on Wednesday, and we just hit the ground running and just didn't stop at all. It's incredible.
Yeah, because we did that. We did the walkthrough. We did. As you said, we went over to the CFL Fans Fight Cancer event. We rushed over to the convention center over to the BC Lions Den to do our hit over with Reed over on the Markcast.
Yeah, shout out to Reed. He did a phenomenal job with that.
Yeah. So it's and for me, I'm just trying to think of everything. I loved everything I did. There really wasn't one thing. I mean, trying to think one that stood out the most for me. I mean, I'd probably say I don't know if it necessarily was the Owls event, but I think for me, and maybe it's because we are part of Alouettes Nation, is that when we were over at Tiger Town, or what was I guess we could call it the Nest at the time, summarily what would have been called the Nest. Just knowing that people that we know within the organization came over and made sure they stopped by and said hi.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things that really I think really stood out to me. So it's
because we've been with this team for forever. I mean, we've been supporters of this team for years upon years upon years. But for us to do things now in a media capacity, like we've been trying very hard to get away from the whole fan aspect of things, quote unquote. Not that it's a bad thing, but we want to be taken seriously as a media outlet. And I feel now we have been. Like this week really was an eye-opening event for me. I'm just going to assume it's the same for you. Just when people from the organization are coming up to you and saying, "Hey, great job. You guys are killing it out there. Keep up the good work." Like that. That's huge. When other media outlets are saying the same thing, like they're coming up to me and saying, "Hey, I love what you guys are doing on the flight deck. Keep up the good work." Like that means a lot. That really, like it really does mean a lot to me. I know it means a lot to you as well. I mean, just being validated by everyone that's associated with it. Because we started the podcast and we didn't know how far we could take this. We didn't know what we could do with it, but we wanted to go as far as we could with it. And
we're just longer than others, but still, we got it there. Year one live streaming, man. Woo!
For example, I mean, like, listen, we've changed, we've grown, we've evolved. I think, like Pokemons, we've evolved. But
oh dear God, I don't want to catch them all.
But yeah, no, it really meant a lot for the Alouettes organization themselves, or for their people to come up to us and say, "Listen, you guys are doing a great job. We're proud of you. Even like we see the work that you're doing, and it's great stuff. Like whatever you're doing, keep doing it, and that really does mean a lot to both of us. It's really incredible.
I was gonna say now. Obviously everything wasn't necessarily always glowing. There was some sort of hitches in a way I felt with the festival stuff there, Cliff. Yes, we were lucky enough to have the passes. By the way, which I heard, I just heard this recently. Supposedly I think Reed was mentioning this on his follow-up today on the Markcast, that the passes actually to get in kind of stopped at a certain time, and I don't know if I understood what he said correctly, but there were some issues themselves when it came to the passes, because if you didn't have a festival pass, you kind of paid out of the nose to get into the place just for an X amount of hours, though. I mean, did you hear anybody else complain about that, or was the most of the people that you knew had the festival pass?
I mean, festival passes weren't available necessarily for fans, so to speak. I mean, the passes were meant for media or working people that were going to be working for the festival and that. So, I mean, we were fortunate because we are media that we were able to get in and have access to these parties and things like that. And it wasn't simply a matter of, okay, well, I don't want to pay for this. Like, no, we were there to cover the event. Like, we were there as part of the Grey Cup experience, like to cover everything, and that includes what the fans are doing. So that's why we wanted to attend the festival as well. We want to have access to the festival in order to be able to see what everybody else is doing and talk about it, which is what we're doing right now. So, I mean, I think fans are just there to go and get their party on. I mean, it does seem a little weird to have to pay to access a festival and then pay more for your drinks and such. But I think it'd be even weirder if it was just because in the past, what they've done is like each party had their own admission fee, which to me, I didn't like. I didn't like the idea, especially too, if you have like,
yeah.
So I think doing this actually works out a lot better because you're paying X number of dollars per day. And that's the thing. It's a per day thing, or you could buy a 3-day festival pass. Obviously it would save you more money if you're doing that. Like if you're going to be there the whole, all 3 days, then it obviously makes sense to buy the 3-day pass. But at least this way you have unlimited access to whatever room you want. So it's not like you're going, your friends are in Ryderville, for example, and you're over at Stamp's house. Then like, okay, now I got to pay an admission for this. I got to get a wristband for that and this and that. Like it turns into a whole big bugaboo. To me, I just think it's better. Just pay one price and you have access to everything and just about everything, with the exception of Spirit of Edmonton, which is a big enough event that it requires its own, party headquarters, if you will. Everything else that you could want, though, was there. So, I mean, if you want to go and you want to get your drink on and see your friends and all that stuff, maybe you can't agree on which party you want to go to per se, but at least you have the option. Okay, I can go to this one. I can go to that one. I can go to, you can, or you go to all of them. Like you've got the access. You paid your festival price, then you've got access to all the parties. So,
and I didn't go to Ryderville this time around. I got to get to Ryderville at least once. So,
it's funny. I didn't make it to Ryderville either. In fact, I think the Thursday night we went to Spirit of Edmonton because that is essentially the thing to do. Like you're either going to the CFL Awards or to Spirit of Edmonton. I ended up doing both. So that is like sort of for a lot of people, that is also to the unofficial kickoff to Grey Cup weekend is Thursday night at Spirit of Edmonton. So always great. Shout out to Jerry and his crew. We got to meet them when we went to Edmonton earlier this year, and they put on a fantastic. Like we were only there the one day, Thursday, but it was absolutely fantastic. It was just well run, well organized. No sluice juice, but they saved that for the breakfast on Saturday. But it was still great to see Jerry again. And once again, Spirit of Edmonton is definitely a must do. I mean, if you just that's all you want to do for Grey Cup, there's no problem with that either. You're going to be entertained.
Yeah, not at all.
You can get your drink on, you can get your dance on. The bands that play are fantastic. They do a great job over at Spirit. So by all means, add that to your Grey Cup list if you haven't already.
I think for me, one of the things that really stood out the most, and I think I wasn't able to choose when it came to the festival stuff, is what stood out to me, Bud, is the media suite over the hotel, the media hotel. Great being able to catch up with a lot of people that I only knew via face or by name or by voice. To put the voice to the face, so to speak, and actually get to meet some other other media members from across the country. But most of all, because it's really not necessarily because it was my first time, but was because of just what was done. Was the FCF
FRC.
breakfast on FRC, and on Sunday, and just being there to take part in what is, and it's not what is essentially, it's what is an extension of the inauguration of people into the media wing of the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. And it was very special. Just hearing the stories, the people, and just to be there this year for the people that they inducted. The first woman, Chris Schultz, a long time CFL TSN producer. Just, I think that's probably what's going to resonate the most to me. We may not known many of the faces that were there, or at least at the table that we were sitting at, because there were a lot of TSN representatives there on Sunday. But I think for me, that's probably the thing I'm gonna remember the most. I really am, because it was just, it was fun, it was emotional, it was just everything rolled up in one. I can only imagine what it's like going to the Hall of Fame induction when they have it during the season for the players. So this was just, it's something that I came away with making a very big impression on me.
Yeah, it was pretty special. This year's inductees into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame media wing were Vicky Hall, who is, as you said, the first woman to be inducted into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame's media wing. Absolutely incredible. She's done so much great work over the years, mostly out in Calgary.
The first woman in the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. Technically.
I will have to check back with you on that one.
I think that's what they were saying. That's what they were saying. They never said she was the first person in the media wing. I was under the impression she was the first woman in the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. Anyways, I digress. We'll look it up.
We'll look it up. And again, it doesn't take anything away from the accomplishment. It's still absolutely incredible that it was her contemporaries in the media that recognized the hard work that she's done over the years in providing coverage for the Canadian Football League. That was incredible. Unfortunately, she just had surgery, so she couldn't be there. So she did end up sending an acceptance speech via, I guess via Zoom or however you want to call it. But that was really well done. They also honored the late great Chris Schultz. Again, we know him as a player, but we also know him, I think probably know him a bit more as a broadcaster, to tell you the truth. Phenomenal work that he's done with the CFL and TSN panel over the years. Unfortunately, we lost him in 2021, but clearly his impact is still felt league-wide and throughout the annals of TSN. You think about that TSN panel that has it sits now. They do fantastic work, but I know a lot of people say that they miss seeing Schultzy on the panel, and yeah, you can tell there's a lot of love from his colleagues as well. As I said, this breakfast had a very TSN flavor to it. So, a lot of people were there because of the induction of Chris Schultz, as well as the induction of John Hines, a longtime CFL on TSN producer. He was there to accept the award, and his speech as well. Like, you could tell he was just overwhelmed practically. Like the love and the support from his contemporaries over at TSN. Done a hell of a job, because let's face it, the CFL and TSN broadcasts, I know a lot of people seem to think they're starting to look a little dated and could need a little freshening up. But to get to where we are now, like once TSN took over as the lead broadcaster, it was basically up to him to say, okay, this is your baby now, don't screw it up. And by and large, he hasn't. He's done a phenomenal job producing outstanding episodes of TSN, producing every Grey Cup essentially since it went over to TSN, which is no small feat. I mean, he's definitely done fantastic work. You heard some glowing tributes to him by Glenn Sluter, who he essentially did the induction of John Hines into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. Wow. Like you said, it was such a great experience just to sit in and just see, what these people have done to help make this league a better place media-wise, the stories that they've been able to tell, the things they've been able to share with viewers, readers, listeners, however you consume your media. Yeah, definitely such a great experience. And again, if you're a media person and you're not at this breakfast, something is terribly, terribly wrong, because this is a learning board. This is a chance to sit and admire what some of these people have done. And you've got Hall of Famers sitting there having breakfast with you that you can sit and talk to, right, and hear their stories as well and get to meet them. And that, to me, is something that I really took full advantage of as much as I could, was just sitting and talking with a lot of these guys who have covered Grey Cups for like 20, 30, 40 years, and just hearing their stories and going with some of the struggles they do. And they're asking us questions about, okay, well, what's it like for you guys doing this? Like, because they're not podcasters. They don't know what it's like. They can assume of what a podcast is like, but, just to hear our experience, they were interested in hearing our experiences as well, our struggles and what we've gone through in order to produce a show that people want to listen to or download and watch or what have you. Like, so to me, like, this was such a great eye-opening event, and to be able to be a part of this and be a part of this association with the Football Reporters of Canada, it's a privilege I don't take lightly. I mean, yeah, I mean, this is a must attend. And I know Sunday morning, Grey Cup Sunday morning, like if you've been out partying the whole night, you're feeling a little ragged maybe, but you splash some water on your face, you find a clean pair of socks, and you go have some breakfast, because you want to.
By the way, Vicky Hall is the first woman within the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. So
there you go.
I mean, just being there too, by the way, being there too, seeing the guys from the TSN panel, seeing Dunnigan, seeing Milt, seeing Rod Smith, seeing Suits. It's just so cool. I mean, you see, mostly you see them on TV. A lot of we think of them as TV personalities, but they are real people. Just hearing the stories about this and talking, hearing how prepared Chris Schultz was as a broadcaster. You know what I mean? It's just it gives hope. It gives hope for everybody to that you can be prepared. I mean, it's you look at like a Matthew Shinetti now. Look where he's come in 10 years. You know what I mean? So it's everybody grows. It was just again. Obviously, you do have to be a member of the media. I mean, I know that new media is being recognized, and I think there are, I'm hoping that there will be new groups from new media that are able to join, that do join the Football Reporters of Canada, because it's just an honor. It's just an honor. Again, they may not know our faces, but we're still a part of the story. We're all there to tell a specific story. That's all. That's all that we're there for. So
that's one thing that I came away with more than anything else, is that we're there to tell a story about the Grey Cup, whether it's through print, whether it's through television, whether it's through a medium like this. I mean, we all have a story to tell. We all have a perspective to share, and I mean, that's what people want. That's how people consume media, is in different forms, in different ways. And for us to be able to do it from, I guess, an Alouettes perspective, if you will, it's an honor. It's a privilege, and it's not one I take lightly. And I want to make it clear that, okay, maybe we're not traditional media in that sense. Maybe we haven't spent 30 years doing this like some of the reporters have been doing on the beat for whatever city or team that they're representing. But just to know that we're here too. We want our spot at the table. It doesn't have to be the biggest spot at the table, but we just want to be in the conversation. And we've been accepted with open arms, because these guys, they want to hear from us. They want to know what we're doing. They want to know what we're going through. And if they can impart some wisdom onto us as well, that's great. I will take it all. I'll soak it all in like a sponge. I mean, to me, that's how I want to do better. That's how I want to be better at what we do. And the only way to do that sometimes is just to learn from the past, learn from the people that were there before you, the ones that had to walk so that you could run. And I'm thankful, very thankful to have that opportunity to do so. And it's just a simple matter of, okay, yeah, Grey Cup Sunday. It's not the most exciting time because it's the day of the game and everybody's hungover and such. But as I said, you just gotta, either police yourself accordingly the night before, or you suck it up, get yourself ready, and you go to this FRC breakfast, because it is a lesson. It is a training camp, if you will, or a practice session even for media. So yeah, definitely. I'm hoping other podcasters follow suit. If their team's in the Grey Cup and they have a chance to do what we were able to do, you definitely owe it to yourselves to become members of the FRC and participate in this, because you will learn a lot in a very short time.
Completely. Let's pivot.
We have a game to talk about, don't we?
That's right. We have we have we go have from the media stuff that we did on Sunday, but to the game itself. This game, and I know there are a lot of thoughts that we had within our pregame live, but still, this was an Alouettes team that nobody expected to be there. They're coming into the game as being approximately an 8-point underdog.
Mm-hmm.
A team that had felt disrespected. And there were many, many stories that, yes, we are not going to shy away from, that we are going to talk about here. But there were stories, different stories from being the 1%, being the band of misfit twins. Fajardo came up with so many great terms. Same thing with Coach Moss. They came up with some great terms, but that's how they felt. Representing the unofficial 2023 team logo. And if nobody remembers what I'm talking about, it was the one that had all the symbolism that looked like a jet fighter, a representative of 425 and stuff like that. Stay tuned. I'm not the best graphics guy, but stay tuned, because I actually have a breakdown of what every single thing means on that logo. And it's in, and I can understand why the players got behind it. But again, stay tuned for that. And if I have to do it, if I have to do if I have to tape an episode, and a visual episode, hey, I'll do it just to show it off, and we'll put it out on socials also.
Mm-hmm.
But they come into the game. It's their first Grey Cup since 2010.
Yep.
They're going. It was a matchup where two teams that have never met before in the Grey Cup. There again, so many different stories, and I just wanted to get this one out of the way, Cliff, because I have to, because it's something that led into comments post game with Duquois, how it was perceived by some. I just want your thoughts on it, because as people may or may not know, depending on which, how you were looking at social media, if you're really paying attention to media at all that day or leading up to the week, is that if you walked around Tim Hortons field, Cliff, you did see the Grey Cup logo. Okay, that's fine. But you did not see the Grey Cup logo in both languages. You didn't see it in English. You didn't see it in French. Sorry, you saw it in English. You didn't see it in French. And it seemed that this whole thing started a week prior in Toronto, when the Canadian national anthem was not sung in both languages.
Right.
It was brought up a lot by French media. I know it was brought up by besides Duquois at the end of the game. Who it was also brought up by
Arash
DJ on
Madani.
RD. Rash Madani. I think DJ on RDS. Denny Orton just on RDS. But and we don't. You were there before they painted some of the logos on the field. At the 25s, they had both, the CFL and the LCF logo, the side of the field that the Alouettes are going to be on. Maybe that was the entire planned the entire time? We don't know, because those are painted after the fact.
Yes.
But mostly up until game time, from what I remember, there really was not any French signage, except for in the press media rooms for the Alouettes press scrums post-practice.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on this? Because Randy Ambrosie kind of, I think, stepped in it a little bit when he was commenting on, I think, the pregame show, where he basically, and this is just my paraphrasing, that it's a nothing burger. There's nothing behind it, nothing at all. You really expect Ambrosie to come out and say, "Well, we screwed up"? This is Randy Ambrosie who can't stand up and admit that the whole Genus Sports thing has been an utter debacle. However he commented on the media press state of the league earlier last week, mentioned some things about it, but we are a league that is of 2 languages. It is really of more languages, but officially it is of 2. What are your thoughts, Cliff? Because as we saw at game time, by the way, and I think this may have happened, I don't know, you ended up seeing, I think, some rushed Grey Cup logos placed in the most obscure places where you never would have seen them. So tiny that they weren't made on television. What was your mind set and your thought about this whole missing French Grey Cup logos?
It was bizarre, to say the least. I guess I didn't really notice it at first, because you walk around Tim Hortons Field and you do see bilingual signage for the most part. I mean, for example, like over the video board, it does say Terrain Tim Hortons Field. So I mean, it's got sort of the bilingual translation there.
It's always done that, though.
Yes.
Tim Hortons Field. I don't know if you. Okay, you know that. Okay, good. Okay, so for those who don't know, it's always been bilingual for Tim Hortons Field. Yes.
There is signage in French in certain areas. As you said, in the green room where the post-practice scrums were held, they did use the backdrop had both Coupe Grey and Grey Cup. So I saw that. They did have a Coupe Grey logo on the front of the table. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, I guess I didn't really give too much thought about the actual inside of the stadium itself, like as far as like the livery, I believe it's called. I mean, I really didn't think too much of it, but because I saw a lot of like Hamilton 110 stuff, the occasional Grey Cup thing. But yeah, I guess in hindsight, looking back, it's like, yeah, there really wasn't anything. And yes, this is a bilingual league. It's a bilingual Grey Cup. And yes, you do happen to have the one team from Quebec that does primarily use French language things as for promotional materials. There's nothing for them, so to speak. Couple that with Shock. I think with Shock,
Francophones, in the upstate, in the head office in Toronto.
That's right. Yeah, it just
go back bizarre. 2 years. The last one in Hamilton, there was bilingual livery. Go back and check the photos. What happened in 2 years? Anyways, yeah. I interrupted you.
Yeah, so I didn't think of it as disrespectful. I mean, it's so funny. Like this, we've said it numerous times. There's a lot of times where the Canadian Football League just can't get out of its own way, and this is a shining example of this. I mean, you would think that whoever is in charge of the decorations, and the ordering of this material would say, "Oh yeah, it's the Grey Cup, but maybe we should do some Coupe Grey stuff done as well and put it throughout the stadium, like make it 50-50 as much as possible." It's not required by law, for example. Like, it's not like here in Quebec where, you can have English on signs, but it has to be like 2 times smaller than the French. Like, this is supposed to be as bilingual as possible when it comes to the Canadian Football League. And to not see any Coupe Grey stuff, yeah, it was bizarre. Couple that with, as I was talking about, the Shaw Cable had pretty much predicted Winnipeg versus Toronto to be in the Grey Cup. So in a lot of ways, you'd be like, well, you can almost make the argument, well, there's no French teams in the Grey Cup, so we don't need to put French stuff up. And maybe most people wouldn't have noticed that. But sure enough, Arash Madani noticed that there was no Coupe Grey or anything like any sort of French signage or anything, as far as the livery goes. And it got picked up by other outlets. And yes, Dizzy Ormages from TSN, or from RDS, I should say, he noticed it as well, and just said it was just such a shame that the league doesn't think like that. And then, yes, watching Randy Ambrosi kind of backpedal his way through it. And, I'm sure that behind the scenes, there's a lot of rushing to get things straightened out as best as they could, and, make sure that, there is definitely a French presence at the Grey Cup as much as you can. Like you said, a lot of stuff was done last minute, like the painting of the logos on the 25-yard line, little things. And, it was a scramble job to try and make it look a little bit more bilingual. But I mean, at that point, when you got a big honking CFL logo front and center on the 55-yard line, it's not both logos. You just had the one there. That's a major gaffe, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you had the Winnipeg logo in one end zone. You had the Alouettes logo on the other one, which also did say Alouettes Montreal, which is more French leaning, but that's the right way to do it. So that logos wise, those are fine. But to not have the LCF logo at midfield as well, baffling. Again, someone was asleep at the wheel on that one. And then the other logos were added on after the fact, but they would have been added on regardless anyways, because of the practice that was going on. And they even had to touch up the midfield logo. But yeah, it's between the anthem singer from the week before, like there was a lot of things that were piling up. And I think a lot of that was kind of weighing on Dequoy, as far as, the lack of representation, and how the rest of the Alouettes too, even if they're not Francophone or from Quebec, realize, okay, we're playing for a team from Quebec. They should be given respect. They should be given the recognition of being a French language or bilingual organization as well. And I can see how some people would see it as a slap in the face. Of all these events put together, it just seems like one giant slap in the face. And then the league, instead of owning it, just kind of skirted around it and just kind of, as you said, tried to make it into a nothing burger. And that never works as far as I'm concerned. Like that, you're just digging yourself in a deeper hole. And yeah, I think when it was all said and done, like when the game was over and Marc Antoine got on the microphone, he let it out, and kudos to him for saying what needed to be said, and to express that emotion and frustration and all that. Like, I don't know if that made him play better. I don't know if that made this Alouettes defense player, I don't know if it made the Quebec-born Alouette players play better as a result. I mean, if you're not fired up being in the Grey Cup, I mean, you don't have no business being there. But to me, I think that
I want people to remember really, too.
What?
I was going to say, I want people to remember too, in my opinion, because I know we have more exciting stuff to talk about. But it was something that it was news that it needed to be talked about. Yeah. In my opinion, no matter how this was taken out of context by some people, especially by some particular political parties here in Quebec, this was not a language issue. This was not a French versus English thing in any way, shape, or form. This was just a disrespect to a team from a province where it is predominantly French speaking, and you are not representing the entire country, the entire league, all 9 teams. It wasn't a French versus English. If anybody who tells you, and Cliff, if you think I'm wrong, tell me, please. This was not a language issue, 100% in my mind. It was just a disrespectful type of thing where it was, again, the logo should have been in bilingually. It's around the stadium. Doesn't matter who's playing. Yeah. Doesn't matter who's playing.
Because let's not forget,
It's
all 9 teams have Quebec-born players on that speak French.
thank you.
So, I mean, even if it was Winnipeg versus Toronto or BC versus Toronto for the Grey Cup, you still have francophone players on those teams. I'm sure they like to be represented as well. And just something simple as seeing the LCF logo reminds them that, yeah, okay, this is my league too. Like we come from Quebec and we are playing for another province's team, but this is still our league in that sense. And yeah, the lack of any sort of French, logos or signage or verbiage on signs or anything like that is just a major misstep. And instead of the league owning it, like hearing Randy Ambrosie just kind of fluff it off is disappointing, but truthfully, not that surprising coming from him.
No, it's not. It's not at all. Any other storylines before we get to kickoff?
I mean,
because I want listeners to understand that this is something that did need to be talked about. And
yes.
Again, I wanted to make it clear that it is not a language issue in any
Right.
way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, Marc-Antoine Dequoy is now being sort of seen as a bit of a folk hero now because he feels like he's standing up to the evil English for being disrespected, but that it's not that. It's really
that's
not
another
that.
narrative. Yeah, that's a narrative that has been taken totally out of context. But people will use what they want to use, right, Cliff? They'll use what they want to use to gain a quote unquote advantage.
Sure.
So, but you know what? I'll say this now. I will say this now. I know because we're jumping ahead of quickly. Even though today's parade and championship celebration was done mostly in French, even our owner Pierre Carpelado said something in English.
He did, and let's not forget, he also is the former leader of the Parti Québécois, which is very French, very separatist.
Yeah, that to me, was a very strong message to the fan base that I think I'm hoping it resonated. Where it means it doesn't matter if you're an Anglophone, doesn't mean if you're a Francophone, doesn't mean that you're an Allophone. You're all a part of Alouettes Nation.
Agreed, and I'm sure it also helps too that I guess he had to realize, okay, like I'm standing here with a bunch of my American-born players that do not speak any French at all, so I guess I better say a little something so that they can understand. Which again is just smart, because I'm sure if you were asked, like,
say this, but I never thought I'd hear me say this, but I actually applauded PKP for him doing that.
100%. Like I think that just speaks to the kind of person that's running this organization and top to bottom. Like, yes, I mean, I think in a lot of senses that this team may have felt like they've lost their identity as far as being in the province of Quebec and the city of Montreal, and with PKP at the helm, that's going to be changed. That's like he's made it very clear. This is Quebec's football team, and he wants it to be celebrated by all Quebecers. Whether, and again, I'll even go as far as whether you're French speaking, whether you're English speaking, whether you speak both, whether you speak none, you're included. If you're in Alouettes Nation, you're included on this team. That's the narrative that should be pushed more than anything else. Whether it's French, English, any of that, it doesn't matter. I think with PKP coming out and, as you said, giving a speech today, predominantly in French, yes, but he did definitely put some English in there. Maybe just to placate, and make the players feel like, okay, I'm still a part of that. And I even remember too, the first day of training camp, the documentary that the Alouettes showed, PKP was there in English telling his story of how he came to be and how he rose to prominence in Quebec. He told that story in English to his players because, well, 99% of them are English speaking. So he is shown to. It's obvious that he's very proud of being Quebecois. He's very proud of being French, predominantly French. But at the same time, as a businessman, he knows that sometimes you got to do business in English. And if you want to reach everybody, if you can speak both official languages, the world is your oyster. And I think that's truly how he presented himself from day one at training camp all the way to today's speech at the parade.
Because I know it's kind of leading up, past. We found out after the fact, and we were talking about, particular storylines, that the team's been following all week. The Band of Misfit Toys, um, and we knew it sounded like that these players would walk through walls for each other. They would walk through walls for Coach Moss. And we found out after the fact, because I think this is more story for right up leading up to kickoff than really is after kickoff. Is we heard about the pre-day speech from Cody Fajardo to the team, and it was finally released out on social media, and hence the comment my my FUJW comment earlier. um, what would after hearing Cody speak and just the passion behind it, because he himself felt slighted, obviously, which I can kind of get. Finally we go from language uh, to Cody.
Personnel.
Yeah. That was one hell of a speech by Cody, and I think it's funny as everybody said Cody does not swear. And I get that. And even today, he goes, if you have kids, I'm sorry, but
cover your ears, kids. That's what he said today.
what were your thoughts when you saw that? Because this gives now us a little bit more insight into the team leading up to kickoff.
I mean,
and by the way, if you haven't seen it, and I can't believe you haven't, it's on social media. You can't miss it.
You really can't. Just go to the Alouettes X account and you'll see it there. I'm sure they must have it on all their other socials as well, but it's
yeah.
It really is something. And it's funny because leading up to that was obviously done Saturday night. And leading up to it, I remember I spoke with Cody Fajardo at Media Day on Wednesday very quickly, and he was in good spirits. He was, like very happy-go-lucky. Like not in the sense that he's just happy to be there. He was relaxed. He was enjoying the moment, so to speak. And, it was nice to talk with him there. Was it Friday? No, sorry, Saturday afternoon. They did a presser with him as well. And same thing. He was just, going through some of, what he'd seen in camp so far, what he'd seen during practice, during this Grey Cup week, answered a lot of the questions about his journey, if you will, leading up to Grey Cup Sunday. And it's funny. It was the kind of stuff I'd come to expect from Cody Fajardo. He was obviously very engaged, very passionate, very, very concise with his words as well. But wanted to make clear that, how he felt. Like he said himself, I wear my heart on my sleeve. You guys know this. You guys in the media know this, and you've even given me grief over it. But that's just who I am. He's a very passionate, very proud individual. When I saw that speech that he gave to his teammates, you saw the fire. You saw the man become a leader. Like you saw, okay, this guy is going to go to war for me, so I'm going to war for him. You could see that he was pissed off. He was insulted. He was upset. Like a lot of the stuff that we saw from, as we keep going back to the debacle with ownership back in February, which handcuffed this organization in signing certain free agents, which led to Cody Fajardo coming here. And when he came here, a lot of people didn't want him. A lot of people were like, why are you signing this guy? He's a loser. He's nobody. He sucked out in Saskatchewan. Like, why are you doing that? Why? Because Jason Moss was the coordinator. He sucked out there too. Like, there was so much negative about that. And Cody, to his credit, if people were saying that to his face, you didn't know about that. He just kept coming forward, saying the right things, and said, just watch me work. You're gonna see someone who's gonna give 110% and did all the right things. And yes, by and large, it wasn't a perfect season for Cody Fajardo, but he definitely did the work, and he definitely helped this team win football games. And slowly but surely, you got to see him become the leader of men. Like we definitely see it in Jason Moss, but we even said during the pregame show, and before we saw this speech, that simply put, Cody Fajardo is going to have to become the leader that we expect him to be. He's going to have to play the game of his life on Sunday. And if you had seen that speech, there was no question in your mind he was going to play the game of his life. I mean, just the way he did it, the way he emphasized everything, like to the critics, the haters, to everyone who doubted this team, who doubted him, who doubted everything to do with this organization. He said it perfectly. Fuck you. Just watch. He hammered that point over and over again. And you can see you see the anger, the frustration, like that sheer disrespect being thrown in his face, and he was not having it anymore. Like he had enough. Like he was like to the point like you would almost feel sorry for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers because like they're gonna get it. Like that was just that feeling, and I'm sure like anyone who was in that room probably felt the same way. Like yeah, okay, let's go. Like this is our guy, this is our leader, and that's what he did. He took this team into war, and he led them. He truly became a leader of men. So proud of his speech, like so proud of taking that energy that we know, that fiery passion, and just putting it towards something like this was such a treat. Like I can just imagine what it must have been like the players when they hear him talk like that, just be like, yeah, that's my quarterback.
Yeah, Joey Alfieri was mentioning too that he was in the background when they were doing that thing, and even he said that he would have, run through a wall for him after that speech.
So many other people were saying the same thing.
Yeah, I've never been in a room where I've had that type of speech said. Just not necessarily to fire you up, but just to get you in the right mindset. I would love to have been in that room.
Oh,
just to hear
without question. And as I said, like just in talking with the players this week, and talking with the coaches, and talking with everybody involved with the Alouettes this past week, I never got the impression once that they were just glad to be there. Like, because a lot of teams get accused of that. It's like just they're glad to be there. They're just excited that they made it to the Grey Cup. Like, no, they were thankful to get there, but they knew they had to work their asses off to get to this point. And they didn't come this far just to come this far. Like they came to work, and that's what it really was they were there to work. They had a goal in mind. They knew what they had to do in order to be victorious on Sunday. And I dare say they worked their plan to perfection.
What is your thought on people who say, just real quickly, it's just a narrative? They needed something to back them. They weren't just the 1%. They weren't the ones that are being marginalized. Why don't take the power rankings so personal, that type of thing. I think that's garbage because it's true. I mean, and there'll be many stories that we're gonna have on our season-ending episode where we're just going to go over the entire season for the Owls and for us, where we know what this team has been through. Cody's even said too that he's grateful that Danny Mac gave him a 2-year contract, not just a 1-year contract, a 2-year contract. It just shows that he was wanted. He was wanted. So,
and not to mention the fact too, like a lot of people thought, okay, Jason Moss and Cody Fajardo weren't getting along in Saskatchewan. Turns out they wanted to work with each other. It truly was Saskatchewan themselves that couldn't make it work between the two of them. And first chance they got to get rid of them both, they end up being the scapegoats for the terrible season they had in Saskatchewan last year. Unfair, and now we see unfairly because, well, clearly they were not the problem.
Yes, Saskatchewan ended this season the exact same way that they did last on a 7-game losing streak.
Exactly. You can't blame Cody Fajardo for that. You can't blame Jason Moss for that. Now, unfortunately, Saskatchewan, they got to look themselves in the mirror and say, yeah, they weren't the problem. It's all on us.
How important do you think? Because I've always said to you that the coin toss in the CFL is one of the most underwhelming and useless things that is done at the beginning of the game. This time around, it actually meant a lot. Because usually, as people may or may not know, is that when it comes to the coin toss, you can defer, sure. But once you come to the second half, even though you have deferred and you should be getting the kickoff, you can actually, I guess, give up the kick so you can flip sides. You can choose the side that you want in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
How important was them winning that coin toss and deferring to the second half versus Winnipeg in this Grey Cup?
I think it was huge because you had to see what Winnipeg was going to do. Offensively, they're very powerful. and you almost want to put your defense to the test right away to see if you can get that stop. And also, too, I mean, the wind wasn't really a factor per se. I mean, like, we felt it in the stands, though. I mean, it was cold and blustery. It didn't look like it on the field.
It was damp.
Well, there's that too, but I mean, I don't think the players were truly affected by that. I mean, a lot of them went sleeveless, so obviously they slathered on the Vaseline and off you go. But but as far as I think you want to see what you have to work with first, and I mean, by now you had to know what Winnipeg's capable of offensively, and I think it's for this defense though. I think it was key for them to get their legs in underneath them right away and see what they have to deal with as far as, trying to limit Zach Collaros and his receivers, trying to keep Brady Oliveira honest as well. I mean, I think for them, this defense, by and large, has been the star of this Montreal Alouettes team up into the Grey Cup. And I think it's just a matter of, what these guys are able to do. It's making sure that they can go and do it against Winnipeg, the same way that they did against Toronto, Hamilton, and so forth. And I mean, a lot can change from the first half to the second half, but I think it was key for them to defer to the second half. Let's get started with the defense right away because that's where our bread is buttered, and take it from there and just get, I'm almost forcing Zach Collaros into action right away, and let's see what he's going to do. Let's see how he reacts to our defense because yes, these two teams have played each other earlier in the year, but it's not the same defense that Zach Collaros is facing this time around.
Narrative. God, I hated that. They kept on bringing that garbage up, and I'm like, as we sit in our pregame, come on, this is not that same Alouettes team that played them earlier in the year in any way, shape, or form. This wasn't the same Alouettes team that had only scored 3 points offensively against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the regular season. That was a regular season. This was Grey Cup.
Yep.
My thought too, Cliff, is winning that toss, the coin toss, is kind of a godsend because, teams that are like that, they want to try and try and want to double dip. They try to want to score before the end of the half, depending on where they are, winning or losing, get some points, and then get the kickoff to try to do the exact same thing again and get some more points.
Correct.
The Owls almost pulled that off. I know I'm jumping ahead here. The Owls almost pulled that off, but getting that kickoff at the beginning of the third quarter allowed them to change the narrative of the game. It allowed them to change the narrative. I know we're jumping ahead, but again, we'll talk about it. I mean, but a 3-play touchdown drive put them right back in the game. Where
and they were only, and again, they were only down by 7 at the half, or down by 10 at the half. So I mean, not an insurmountable lead. So I mean, it's just it was about getting the momentum and just essentially keeping it throughout the game.
Yeah. Thoughts on how the game started off early on? Because if nobody watched the real stats, I mean, you all of us were sitting there in the stands, and by the way, first time at Tim Hortons Field, even though we were the upper deck, I think 8 rows up, we weren't that far away from the field itself. So top notch on how they constructed the stands. It's just weird how to get around the stadium, in my opinion. But if you check the stats originally for the first quarter, this seemed to be the Alouettes that we've been seeing for most of the year. Winnipeg completely dominated that first quarter. They held the ball for 12 of 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The Owls, I think, had was it 6 offensive plays? Yeah, 6 offensive plays in the first quarter.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a little tough. And again, as I said, one of the keys was going to be keeping Brady Oliveira honest, but he came to play. I mean, he was maybe inspired by the fact that he didn't win Most Outstanding Player at the CFL Awards. He won Most Outstanding Canadian, but not Most Outstanding Player. Probably felt he should have, so he wanted to prove that he should have been Most Outstanding Player as well. And he was just difficult to stop. Like I jokingly call him Brady Olive Oil because he's so damn slick. Like as far as trying to tackle the guy, not quite as bad as AJ Ouellette trying to tackle him, but I mean Oliveira. I mean, there's a reason why this guy has over 2,000 yards rushing. I mean, he's so good on the ground, and there's no question about that. And Montreal definitely had to respect that. And yeah, he was giving the Alouettes defense quite a few fits, and yeah, scoring a scoring touchdowns and just running roughshod essentially in that first half of football.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the first quarter alone, too, as I said, Owls had the ball. Here it is for 3 minutes and 55 seconds. They were lucky to be up. I mean, we had been worried about William Stanback for the last couple of weeks. Really didn't do anything last week. Seemed like they got their running game going somewhat within the entire game itself, so to speak. But for William Stanback to really put a statement, get the Owls back into the game after they were down 10 with that long touchdown, it showed us that this was not going to be a blowout, and that the Alouettes were actually here to play.
Without question. And we can't overlook some of the questionable calls made by the referee. Probably the most egregious one to start the first half was that unnecessary roughness call on Mustafa Johnson as he was trying to tackle Zach Caleros, claiming that it was not roughing the passer because at that point he was already running. But that was a baloney call. That truly was. I mean, that if you didn't know better, you'd swear the refs had money on Winnipeg. And I hate using that expression because especially when the team loses, and it's like, exactly. I don't want to come across as sour grapes, but
it's not because we won. But
also too, like, but what bothered me though was like Willie Jefferson made a very similar tackle on Cody Fajardo. Now, it was very close. Like it was almost leaning towards horse collar the way he kind of grabbed the top of his jersey. Not very long. Obviously, it happened so quick that the referees didn't have a chance to possibly even consider the possibility of it being a horse collar. But I found that Willie Jefferson's tackle was very similar to what Mustafa Johnson did to Zach Caleros, but no flag was given to Jefferson. And the flag that was given to Johnson essentially moved the Bombers pretty much all the way to the goal line practically. And that's how Winnipeg scored their first touchdown. And between that, and there's a couple of other questionable calls as well throughout the game that it almost felt like a lot of non-calls too. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, again, it's easy to complain about referees, and especially this being the biggest game of the year, you can't screw things up. You really can't. You really got to make sure the calls are done properly. And you think even the command center would have taken a look at some of these calls and be like, oh, whoa, hold on. It's not that. And just pick up that flag.
We started with the Stanback touchdown. How long was that delay?
I mean, not as long as the Ben Cahoon retirement ceremony, but I mean, it was pretty damn close.
Weekly reference. Love it. Okay.
But yeah, it took a long time for them to determine that, yes, it was a touchdown. I mean, you said it yourself. You said it yourself in the stadium, though, that, listen, if you can't figure it out in 2 minutes, then it's obviously not, like, there's nothing, like, it's not disputable.
Exactly. By the way, so if that's the case, note to CFL, get pylon cams. You have 45 cameras, you have a helicopter, you have a drone, spend some money and get pylon cams.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Couldn't hurt. I mean, considering
there were questionable calls. There was, and I've already gone back to watch Grey Cup again. There was the questionable call on the James Fletcher fumble, where in my opinion, and a lot of people too, that was no yards.
Agreed.
It was obvious. He was outside the 5-yard mark. Obvious. There was the play in the end of the first half on the goal line stand where Montreal was stopped, which could have ended the game, by the way. But again, we talked about it before. They got the ball back in the second half, kickoff in the second half, and was able to score at 3 plays later.
Yeah.
Defense was offsides. There was the egregious and blatant DPI on the incredible Austin Mack one-handed catch. Where was the ref looking? It was so obvious that he had Mack's arm. It was so obvious he had Mack's arm. What? I don't get it. Get his hand in his pocket, but get the flag in his pocket. We couldn't do anything because on the no yards call, Coach Maas challenged it, And the command center, I guess there was not enough information in order to overturn it. Garbage. How many? You have 45 cameras. You have a sky cam. You have a drone, and you cannot tell me that you didn't see a photo. You didn't see a picture, a video that showed that he was within 5 yards. He was past the 5 yard mark. Come on.
Yeah.
And then this one about Mac. If it wasn't for Mac, man, oh man, you know what I mean? And would the as you just said, would the command center have stepped in? Would they have stepped in if Austin had not caught that ball? I don't know.
I'm going to assume not. And it's not a matter of being biased towards one team or another, but I mean, it was a phenomenal catch. And again, credit to Austin Mack for being able to take an underthrown ball by Cody Fajardo and just make magic happen. But yes, he was clearly interfered with, and the referees, swallowed their whistle or something, but they couldn't throw the flag on that. But you throw flags on other stuff like that. Like I said, it was very questionable, a lot of the decisions. And I'm not trying not to make this sour grapes or anything like that. And a lot of people are like, well, what are you complaining about? Your team won. Well, it wasn't about whether or not our team won or not. It was a simple matter of this is the biggest game of the year and you want it called correctly. And yes, everybody makes mistakes. Sometimes calls get missed and things like that. But I mean, stop to think the reason why that was such an amazing one-handed catch was because his other hand was otherwise compromised. I mean, put 2 and 2 together. Why don't you?
Yeah. Again, thank God for Mac. I'm trying to remember. Was that on the speaker touchdown drive, or was that in the one after that?
No,
I remember.
I think it was after that.
Okay, so it was on the one that he scored.
Was it
the Mac touchdown?
No, he didn't he didn't score until I think late in the third quarter. So I mean, it was.
No, but it wasn't the same drive though.
It wasn't the same drive, I don't believe.
No, okay, but still, yeah, that was another storyline itself. As these refs, I mean, there weren't very many penalties called in this game, but
no,
the ones that weren't or missed were just. You supposedly are the best because you were there. Doing the game, doing the Grey Cup, and this garbage. I don't complain about referees that often, but this was, in the game. If it had happened in the if this had happened in the Super Bowl, they would be getting reamed just as hard. Well, hell, look, we've seen worse. We've seen DPIs that should have been called, in the playoffs in the NFL. And look where that I mean, come on. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was at Saints Rams? Was that one of the most egregious ones recently?
Yeah. Back in 2021, I think it was.
DPI. I just don't understand this clip.
No, especially with so many cameras at the game itself. And you're telling me you couldn't see this angle? And again, it's not like Coach Moss had a timeout to burn, or he didn't have a challenge to burn on it because he already used it for the, as you said, the Letcher fumble. And again, something else that is happening way too often, where coaches almost have to do the job for the referees to bring this sort of thing to their attention.
By the way, even though with the Alouettes had pulled after the third quarter, had pulled within 3. Winnipeg still dominated that third quarter. The Owls only had the ball for 4 minutes and 22 seconds. It didn't seem it, though. It's because the game was so close. The defense was doing what they needed to do. Something that they've been doing all week long, all year long. The fourth quarter is when they stood up.
Yeah.
Outscoring Winnipeg by 20. They outscored Winnipeg in the second half 21-7.
And you can tell that Zach Collaros was trying to really make stuff happen. I mean, he was throwing darts to Kenny Lawler. Nick Dembski was able to evade all sorts of tackles and just, really stretch the field.
But this is we even talked about him earlier in the season. Talked to him in one of our interviews for Grey Cup. Let's talk about Kabian Ento and his just comeback story. because this was a guy that we were blasting. After that game versus Toronto, where the Alouettes where he gave up 4 TDs and he gave up the winning touchdown versus Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
But after coming back from a bye, something changed. Being switched to the other side of the field, this rookie looked like a vet. To be able to tip away first a Zach Caleros pass in the end zone, and then second of all, to have the foresight to say, I'm getting off my guy, because he recognized the pattern and saw where Zach was throwing the ball, and for Cabinento to pick off that ball in the end zone, that was another huge turning point for this Alouettes team in the Grey Cup.
Yeah. Not to mention, too, he caused a fumble earlier on. Like, he caused a Brady Oliveira fumble that Ciante Evans was able to pick up that helped put the momentum back to Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about people having to play the game of their lives. I mean, we thought Cabinento did a phenomenal job in the Eastern Final against the Argos. I mean, he had a pick six in that game, and he played some outstanding football there. We thought that was great. That alone made for a great full circle moment for KB. As you talked about, he got burnt badly in that first game against Toronto, and then for him to have that pick six and have that sort of full circle moment, if you will, in the Eastern Final was fantastic. And so you figure anything else he does at this point is just a nice bonus. We'll talk about what ultimately would be a game-saving touchdown or interception, because had Winnipeg scored there, that might have been just enough for them to hold on and win. But Cabinento just was not going to be denied. And he read the route perfectly. He kept his eyes on the quarterback. He almost dared him to throw, and the ball just broke the perfect way, and Ento just turned into it at the right precise moment and just snapped it away. Absolutely outstanding. And against Kenny Lawler, no less. And we were wondering who's going to be covering Kenny Lawler, and I thought, I bet you it's going to be Ento. And if it was the Cabian Ento of earlier this year, you'd be like, oh, yeah, I don't know. But if it was clearly going to be the Cabian Ento who had a phenomenal game in the Eastern Final, like, okay, this is going to be a test for him, but I bet you he does well. And look what happened. I mean, Kenny Lawler did have some nice catches in this game, put up some half-decent numbers working against Ento, but when it counted the most, when you really needed a phenomenal play from this defense, there he was. Keep calm and KB on.
And the interception occurred in the third quarter after the Alouettes had pulled within 3. So it was, even that early, but it was about 7 minutes left. It was halfway through the third. It still was a huge play. I mean,
big time.
Then we got the Mac touchdown in the fourth.
Let's not overlook Cole Speaker's touchdown, where he absolutely dusted Adam Big Hill.
Yeah, you can't overlook that at all. Can't overlook that. Wasn't that the touch? Wasn't that the tutty in the third?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So I mean,
but the play coverage, and Marshall Ferguson actually did a very nice breakdown of it. Go check it out on his X account.
His stuff that he broke down. That was amazing.
I mean, and it's kind of funny because even Adam Big Hill himself responded like, it was great coaching by the Alouettes, but I mean, that's not my job to cover a receiver vertically or horizontally. I'm like, look, dude, we know this, but at the same time, listen, you're still one of the premier linebackers of this league. I mean, you got to be able to adjust for everything. And I'm pretty sure any linebacker worth his salt will tell you the exact same thing. So again, I don't think it was meant to be sour grapes on Big Hill's part, but it's just own it, man. I think that's really what it was. And listen, give him credit. He throughout the week, we didn't know if Big Hill was going to even be playing in this game or not, or at least that's what Winnipeg wanted you to think. And not only did he play in this game, he also got hurt again in this game. I thought, okay, well, there's no way he's come back in. And sure enough, he was back in there. But I almost felt like if you didn't know better, you'd swear that Anthony Calvillo and Jason Moss were just going to pick on him, just take advantage of a wounded animal. That's really what it came down to. And that's pretty much what that Speaker touchdown was just him being able to evade Big Hill, like just draw the coverage away. Like the usual coverage was drawn away, and Big Hill was left to his own devices. And like I said, he's not 100%. And it was clear because Speaker was able to just sort of, zip past him and catch that touchdown. And it was just, wow, just a great sequence all around. Not if you're out on Big Hill, but I mean, that was just a great touchdown strike as far as I was concerned.
Before we get to the final drive, this wasn't all, sunshine and butterflies for the Owls here. There actually was something that was very concerning for us throughout the game. And it's a guy that really had not had a problem at all the entire season. What you and I were only wondering what was going on with punter, with our punter,
Joseph Zima.
Because Zima, man, it's one of the worst. It's one of the worst games he's had as an Alouette. Shanking punts, 2 of them going out for illegal kickoffs. He had one fantastic punt later on where it was just a booming punt, but that was really one of the only bad things about this game was Joseph Zima's punting.
Yeah, I was convinced he actually, one of them, I was convinced hit the cable of the cable camera. But as I watched it moving back and forth, I was like, okay, it's possible, but not in this case. Like, I think it just really was, I don't know if he had the yips all of a sudden or what it was, or maybe the football was maybe just a little too cold because of the wind. Who knows what it was, or, it's just, that was not the time for Joseph Zima to have a bad game, simply put. And, thankfully it didn't end up costing Alouettes in the end, because even though it gave Winnipeg a short field, the defense stood up and was able to at least keep the damage to a minimum. No
matter what happened. Yeah, no matter what happened. It seemed like on both of those plays too, where he had those, the Owls came through with sacks.
Yeah,
they came through with sacks. And
whether it was Darnell Sankey, Reggie Stubblefield getting a sack. I mean wow,
that went low to that one. I can only imagine the jawing that he was giving Caleros when he was trying to rip the ball away down there, even though it was Zach. It was Zach's ball, but
he put the wood to him. It was phenomenal. Sean Lemon also got a sack on Caleros as well. I mean that. But again, we weren't expecting that from Reggie. I mean, Reggie, like I said, he's been the turnover machine. He's been the one that's making plays happen. But for you don't really hear a whole lot of quarterback sacking from Reggie Stubblefield. But boy,
no. And then Mustafa's sack.
Oh, yeah.
He made it for it in the first quarter. I think he made it for it in the first quarter after that garbage call by the refs. He made it for it in spades.
Yeah, just a much better effort. And just once again, despite having a shortened field, this Alouettes defense was simply not going to be denied. They were not going to let Winnipeg run roughshod on them.
No. So let's talk about the drive.
The drive, without question, that
one of the most memorable drives, I'm sure, in Alouettes history. We've had a few, but man.
So let's set the table. It's 24-21 for Winnipeg. Minute 34 left on the clock when this essentially got going, and we know this. The Canadian Football League, anything can happen. No lead is safe. I know at times it feels like a tired narrative, but in this case, it truly wasn't. And I think both teams realized that, and that's why they played the way they did. I mean, it started. Cody Fajardo gets one of his infamous hitch passes to Austin Mack, minimal gain. Next play, second down, takes a massive quarterback sack. Like, really just not the time to take a sack like that. 2nd and 18 now. And again, let's not forget, the clock does stop after 3 minutes, but still time is of the essence. 2nd and 18, Fajardo goes through his reads, doesn't like what he sees, tucks the ball and runs. And I know myself, I was cringing like, oh God, because every time I see Fajardo run, yeah, he can bust off some really impressive runs, but then sometimes it runs into his offensive lineman or runs into a defender or something, and it just gets stopped cold. And that was my biggest fear. Instead, he goes for a nice little scamper, 13 yards. Like, okay, that's great. Thank goodness. No turnover, no nothing, but it's now third and five. And this is the ball game right here. I'm like, oh Christ, what do you call it? Like, you just gotta get the first down. You just gotta get the first down. Cody takes his 3-step drop and hucks it in the air. I'm like, oh fudge. And then you see the Cole Speaker. Again, another ball that's underthrown, or maybe the wind caught it. I'm not sure, but a little bit underthrown. But Cole Speaker adjusts to the ball, makes the catch, gets the first down, breathing a sigh of relief. But once again, clock is really ticking now. This whole sequence took up a good minute of that minute 34.
Yeah,
we're now
leading into this. Now 35 seconds left on the clock, and then what is called Gold Right, Y Tough, 775X Deep, Frisco, Y Poco, Y Nut Squat, Z Snap. Hut?
Yeah. Now, 99.9% of the people listening to this podcast have no idea what that means. But only 2 people truly had to know what it meant. Okay, technically 12 people or 11 people had to know what that meant. Or 12 people had to know what that meant. Talking about the offense.
And that, by the way, that last part, by the way, the Z Snap, only one person had to know what that was.
Yes.
Who was assigned to that one. And that just happened to be most outstanding Canadian
Tyson Philpott. Who is a Z receiver. And he was. And what does snap mean? Essentially, you start your route, you get to the defender, and you snap back to kind of throw him off. Hence why they said snap.
You deke him. Yeah.
Yeah. Just a little juke out of his shorts, and off he went. And oh my God, when Cody leaned back, again, I'm still looking at the clock. I'm looking at Cody, and I'm like, okay, you got the first down. That's great. And don't play for the tie, because you just don't play. Like, you got to go for it. And sure enough, he did. And just the way that short window that he was able to thread the ball into Philpott's hands and into the end zone, I think my heart dropped. Like because I was ready for the worst. I'm sorry to say I was ready for the worst, because despite the fact that Cody basically played the game of his life, besides the fact that all of these guys on offense played like their hair was on fire, did everything they could to win this game, you just never know. Like, sometimes it's a bad bounce or something awful happens, or there's some reason why.
We've seen many a time on potential game-winning drives.
Absolutely, far too many times that I care to remember. But on this particular instance, Cody just threw a perfect strike to Tyson Philpott, who caught the ball in his hands, crossed the end zone, and everybody exploded.
Nation just went wild.
Like, I was there, excited and shocked at the same time. Like, oh my God. The Alouettes just took the lead by 3, had to kick the extra point. They're up by 4 with 13 seconds left on the clock. Now, we talk a lot about the number 13, the significance to this Alouettes organization. Number 13, the number has since been retired. Anthony Calvillo, who is the offensive coordinator, who came up with that play. 13 seconds left on the clock. It's been 13 years since the Alouettes were in a Grey Cup game. I think there's a couple other instances where 13 mattered at some point, but
13 years since our last Grey Cup.
I just said that.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's all kinds of significance with number 13. The fact that this game-winning touchdown was scored with 13 seconds left on the clock was just kismet, like just destiny. Like you talk about this team being a team of destiny. That was the destiny. That's what had to happen. And we even joked with Tyson Philpott at the walkthrough. It's like, you and Cody were having such a nice connection throughout the later stages of the year, but he missed you in the Eastern Final. And Tyson laughs and says, "Okay, well, we'll start a new streak at the Grey Cup." I'm like, "Okay, that's fun. That's cool." But wouldn't you know it, he actually did it.
God.
Like he prophesized that, and he made it come to light.
I just thought of another 13 besides AC, the clock, the 13th man. What's the total of Tyson and Cody's numbers put together?
Oh my God. Tyson wears number 6, Cody wears number 7.
Oh my Lord. Dude, I didn't think about that till now.
Oh my word.
That's crazy.
I
know. Come on, people think, Tim, Clive, you're grasping at straws. No, the hell we're not.
Fuck you, just watch.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, because that is an actual quote, unfortunately for this episode, the lunatic will not be making an appearance.
We forgot to pack him to go to Grey Cup, so my bad.
Man.
But
wow, just euphoria. By the way, okay, I didn't notice this until I saw it again, and then obviously, the kickoff, Winnipeg gets the ball, and all the defensive backs they're just running, they're just rushing 3. Mm-hmm. On that last play, where I understand, you can try anything you can to get the ball into the end zone, and because we've seen it before with the regular season game versus Toronto, back forth, free kicks, and the Owls getting a touchdown for the win.
Right.
Lual Ugalak calling that free kick for Winnipeg. If you go back, somebody posted it out on social media. He noticed the Winnipeg punter coming in on that last play, or pointing him out. All he was doing, he was doing the kicking motion. He was pointing it out to his players that he was in the game. And by the way, wasn't it the kicker who Ugalak smoked on that play? Was it Ugalak who smoked him?
No, it wasn't. I don't think it was a kicker. I think it was another player who just ended up kicking the ball.
However, okay, I'm trying to remember. I have to go back and check the play-by-play. But
so I think Ugalak he actually made a beeline towards Zach Caleros, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was Sheehan. It was Sheehan. So Caleros passed it to number 18, Sheehan, and then he tried the open field kick, and that's when Ugalak just smoked him.
Okay, so I stand corrected.
Yeah.
But what made me laugh, though, was as the ball was sailing eventually into the arms of Marc-Antoine Dequoy, Reggie Stubblefield was calling for a fair catch. Like, dude, do you forget? And again, I'm going to chalk that up to just muscle memory, because...
And the clock's being at zeros.
Yeah. But, yeah, that just made me laugh more than... Like, upon second review, because at that moment, I was just holding my breath and just, oh God, but sure enough, as soon as Dequoy caught the ball and just moved forward enough, and then went right down, zeros on the clock, game over. The Montreal Alouettes shocked the world yet again and win the Grey Cup.
8th Grey Cup, the Great 8. Alouettes win. It's funny to say, I had to look this up. They won their 3rd straight Grey Cup, the ones that they've been into. So 09, 10, and 23. So the 3rd straight. Not close to Toronto at the moment, but still, it's still nonetheless, it's still a cool thing to see.
Yes, definitely.
And by the way, I know this is a very long form pod, this episode this week, but for obvious reasons. But shout out to the Alouettes organization for allowing us. We never thought that we would get this type of experience, but being given access to be on the field post game.
Yeah,
to see the Grey Cup being given out, see the announcements, and call me silly for being able to get Grey Cup confetti. I don't care what people say. I had a pocket full of Grey Cup confetti. I'm happy to say it.
Yeah.
Then finding out earlier this week, by the way, that Rick Moffat, former voice of the Alouettes, had Grey Cup confetti still in his car from 2010.
Yeah, that was
what an experience to be on the field for all that. I mean, able to do the live. We never thought we would be able to do the live post game on the field. We were. To be able to have access to the Alouettes locker room and to be able to, because we had already, the amount of hugging that we did post game and the people that we hugged was crazy.
Yeah.
Just to congratulate them.
Just the sheer joy.
And then going into the locker room?
That's amazing. Yeah. Again, you said it. We cannot thank the Montreal Alouettes enough for gifting us that opportunity. And, but they had to win. They had to win the game. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to experience that. But they won. It was absolutely incredible just to see the joy. Like, we got to see, we got to be with the friends and family on the field, to take in this moment, and seeing so many family members that we've gotten to know over this past season as well. And just seeing the sheer joy on their face. The Philpott family. We talked about how I saw them earlier at Stamp's house earlier in the week, but to see the entire Philpott family on the field as well, speaking with Tyson's dad, Corey Philpott, who himself, and we learned this incredible fact. Corey Philpott, in his second year in the league, won the Grey Cup with the BC Lions, wearing number 6. Tyson Philpott wears number 6. This is his second year in the Canadian Football League, and he won the Grey Cup. I mean, you couldn't write a better script than that. Like father, like son, and you can see the look on Corey's face, like just relief, joy, ecstasy. Like, I mean, he was just so incredibly happy for his son, and even seeing his twin brother Jalen. And I said, that'll be you too one day. Don't you worry. Like that. Like, you can't hide talent, and both those Philpott boys are talented without question. This just happened to be Tyson's year, and give him all the credit, man. He did the thing. Like, and post game, Cody Fajardo was named most valuable player. Tyson Philpott most outstanding or most valuable Canadian. Couldn't have asked for better, as far as I'm concerned. Talk about that connection that's been happening throughout the year. And for it to come at the most opportune time in the biggest game of both of these guys' lives, wow, outstanding. I mean, I thought Lawal Ugalak could have made a case for most outstanding Canadian with the way he was playing, but once that Philpott touchdown happened, like, okay, it's pretty obvious it was going to be Cody Fajardo as most valuable player, and Tyson Philpott as most valuable Canadian. And kudos to both of them. They did it. They sure as hell did it.
Yeah. It's I just, again, as I said, euphoria. Then just getting back to Montreal, and it's a high. I hope the city does not go down. It does not come down from a little bit, because there's still a lot more to go on. And we had the parade today, our first since 2013. It's the first championship in the city of Montreal since then. By the way, any sport.
Well, actually,
no, not U Sport. Correction, less U Sport.
I was also thinking too, with ladies hockey as well. Les Canadiennes, I think, also won a championship.
Whatever the league was called. Yeah, I know it's changed leagues, but yeah.
And I don't want to take away from that, but I mean, when people think about championships, like, they think about the big ones, like the Grey Cups, the Stanley Cups, World Series, if the Expos were still around, and so on. But So this was a chance.
MLS Cup. MLS Cup is a pretty big one too for CF Montreal. So
Exactly. So, I mean, Montreal Canadiens were in the Stanley Cup final 2 years ago. Didn't get the job done, and that would have been an incredible party that would probably still be celebrated today. Even like that's just how incredible of a thing it is. I mean, like the Canadiens drought is very similar to like what the Bombers have gone through and what the Hamilton Tiger Cats are going through. Like for those, like decades long droughts between championships. And Montreal was technically did have the second longest drought for Grey Cup at 13 years, and they got that snapped. And that has to be a tremendous weight off, because I've been thinking about this, Tim, and I'll probably expand on this too during our year-end show, like the impact of this championship. I think about between 2010 and 2013 or 2023, sorry, this team has seen a lot of shit. It really has. I mean, it has gone through so much. Ownership changes, head coach, GMs, thousands upon thousands of players changing, and just the way this organization was run, that was suspect at best.
Multitude of quarterbacks.
The quarterback clown car, as we like to call it. So some of the very, very questionable decisions made by upper management and such. And this team went through some really, really tough times. And a lot of fans, they couldn't handle it. Because winning's fun, losing sucks. And this team was doing a lot more losing than winning. And a lot of people just abandoned ship. They just said, okay, I don't want to be associated with this loser franchise. But this team has truly gotten itself together. It wasn't pretty, and even this year, and we will talk about this more in detail. But this team really was so disrespected from the start of this 2023 year, and the disrespect continued truly all the way up to Grey Cup Sunday. And they fought through it. They battled past it, and look what they came out with. They came out the other end smelling like a rose, winning the Grey Cup championship, and just silencing all the doubters, all the haters, everybody. So many people are eating crow now because of this Alouettes team. And you love to see it. It is so validating to see this win. Not just for the players and the coaches and everyone who's involved with this team. I'm beyond happy for them to be able to have this championship and to prove that they are a championship. They are a top tier team. They are who they say they are. And they're not who the other people say they are. To me, that is so rewarding, so validating. I couldn't be prouder of this franchise. And you and I, we've seen this team through thick and thin. I'd say we were there for the good times, and we were there through the bad times. It helped make this team what it is today. And I hope that everybody who's at the parade today knows this, realizes and understands this, that it's not going to last forever. These good times, you have to appreciate them. You have to appreciate the struggle. You have to appreciate going through the mud to get to where you are today, to stand tall. And I hear so many fans at the parade today just cheering loudly every time a player was introduced, every time the coaches were introduced, every time Danny Machocha, Mark Waitman, Pierre-Carl Pelledo, once these people were brought up on stage, a loud cheer, because they know that these were the architects. These were the ones who helped put this team together. And
Jason Moss.
I did say Jason Moss, but yeah.
Just reiterating.
Without question. I mean, like, this team has so many great leaders at the helm, and they've done such a fantastic job despite everything else that was going on, despite all the noise, despite everything that had gone about with this team in 2023 alone. Never mind getting to 2023. To be at this point today is like, I can't begin to express how proud I am of this organization and how proud I am to support this organization. And like I said, I've evolved as far as fandom goes. Like, I'm not that crazy fan that's going to paint my face and, do stupid stuff or anything like that just to get on TV or any of that stuff. Like, that to me, like if you're a fan like that, then that works for you, great. I very much want to support this team. I have been supporting this team for several years now. I will continue to support this team through thick and thin, because that's how you're supposed to do it. So to see this moment, to see this championship team as we saw them today, as we saw them on Grey Cup Sunday, as we saw them last week even, and everything leading up to this, it fills me with such pride and joy to be able to say that, yes, this team, warts and all, through everything that they've gone through, are Grey Cup champions. They did it when nobody thought they could do it. And that is so, I can't begin to put it into words how satisfying that must feel, how amazing that's got to be. Like, what a boost that's got to be to the confidence of everybody that's involved in this organization. It truly is amazing. Like this season, Tim, I don't think you and I are going to forget it. Like from start to finish, like from January 2023 to November 2023. I don't think we're going to forget a single moment of this for a long time.
And it's funny. I'm not trying to push this season away, but it'll be just more of a bookend to the story itself. Cliff, is give or take 2.5, 3 weeks. We're going to find out when the Alouettes home opener is and where they raise that banner. That will be the bookend of this 2023 season.
And I'm sure for a lot of people, it's going to be very emotional to see that banner be unfurled, knowing what this team had to go through to be able to have that opportunity to unfurl that banner. And like when you look at even just something simple like championship gear, like seeing hats and T-shirts and all that stuff with 2023 Grey Cup champion Montreal Alouettes, that's amazing and something that nobody could have truly foreseen coming. And it's so great. It's got to feel so good to be able to have that and own that and know that, yes, they did win the Grey Cup. And you're right. Next June or late May or June or whatever it is, they're going to have the home opener. I can't wait to be there. I can't wait to see that banner going up with the 7 other Grey Cup banners that are there at Percival Molson Stadium. Now they have to make room for an 8th. And my God, that's so good. That's the good stuff right there, knowing that. And I can't wait to see it. And it's going to be absolutely amazing.
I think it's the best. That's the best way to bookend this episode, buddy. We appreciate everybody for sticking with us. I mean, it's very rare that we have a long form where we don't have an interview, but this was well worth it, considering what this team has gone through and just the stories alone from this past Grey Cup week, and now your CFL 2023 Grey Cup 101 champions, the Montreal Alouettes.
110, not 101.
What did I say?
You said 101.
110. Yeah. 110. The only people knew what time it was.
Dyslexia's bad, man.
Yeah. 110. 110.
And I can't even blame that on you. Had too much partying going on at Grey Cup, because you were very reasonable in your.
I was very well behaved.
In your alcohol consumption, you were very reasonable. So I can't even blame it on that.
I was quite happy. So we appreciate everybody who has listened to us. We're not done yet. Yet. We still got our yearly State of the Team interview with Alouettes president Mark Waitman coming up. So stay tuned for that one.
You know that's going to be good, and
that's always a good episode.
And truthfully, I'm not ready to call this a season just yet. I still think we've got a little bit more to talk about. So, folks, if you're not already subscribed, make sure you do so. However it is you consume your podcasts, or make sure you're subscribed and like to our YouTube channel as well. Make sure you're following us on social media. Be prepared for when we go get back at this again, because technically the season's over. Doesn't mean our season's over. I still think we've got some more stories to tell, not just with Mark Waitman, but
media never sleeps, buddy. Media
it's
never
true.
Sleeps.
That's true. There's always something to talk about, and I'm not ready to call this a season just yet. Yes, we just did watch the Alouettes win the Grey Cup, and that's amazing. And there's still more to talk about as far as I'm concerned. So, folks, if you again, stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed to however you take in the Alouettes Flight Deck podcast, because we're not done yet, folks. We're not done yet.
No, we're not. So we'll talk to you guys very shortly. Make sure you stay up to date on all of our socials when we have something new. So again, congratulations to the Montreal Alouettes, as they are now an 8-time Grey Cup champion. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on final approach.